Hello and welcome to Happy You Asked, the podcast where we explore a little thing called happiness, one awkward conversation at a time. And I'm your host, Erin Clare, who's currently joining in from Russellville, Arkansas, where it is 50 degrees and sunny in the middle of January, which is mwah, chef's kiss. Beautiful. I am joined today by Dr. Charles Parrott. He is a full professor in the Department of Theater and Performance Studies at Kennesaw State University, which is just north of Atlanta, where I visit like every other week, just the airport.
Oh,
It's a
yeah,
nice
it's a
town
lovely
though.
airport.
Yeah. And he teaches there courses in performance theory, literary adaptation, solo performance, and storytelling. Charles has won numerous awards for his teaching, mentorship, scholarship, and creative work, and he currently serves as the faculty fellow for faculty mentorship in the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning at KSU. He was also recently featured on an episode of Atlanta Storytellers I saw. So, Charles, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I'm
I'm
so
happy to
grateful.
be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, everybody gets the same first question. What is your definition of happiness? Drumroll. Give it to us, Charles.
Oh, that's a really good question. I actually asked a student of mine that was walking by right before you,
Mhm.
before we got on this call, and they were not helpful, delightful, but they were like, "Happiness is what you make of it," kind of, and I was like, "Ah."
Yeah. Thanks
So
for
that's
laughing, student. Be on your way.
she's a delight. I've been thinking a lot in the past couple years about what's the difference between happiness and relief. Uh,
Mm,
like because I, for instance, am a person who makes a lot of lists. It's like a to-do list every day, and I'll check things off the list. And like many of your listeners and viewers and such, I get a lot of satisfaction out of that process, right, of checking things off
mm.
the to-do list. But I thought one day I was like, am I getting like satisfaction out of this or just relief? Is it just like the pressures being relieved of
Mm.
having to do that thing? That seems fundamentally different than happiness.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that. I've never thought about it as relief. And it's also, especially in that case, relief for something that you created yourself, right? We do that ourselves. We're like,
Yeah.
that's relief
Well,
from this thing I
the
stressed.
list I created, but then there's things that I feel as if need to be done, right? The
Yeah, yeah.
dishwasher needs to be emptied, and so
Adulting.
I put
Mm.
everything on the list too, by the way. Little brush your teeth. It's like check it off the list.
Relief.
Every little thing. Um, so yeah, and so the relief is different. Um, it's this sort of this exhale kind of and that's different than happiness. I guess I might think about happiness as being in an environment and in situations that are essentially frictionless or have
Mm.
less friction, that and by that I mean everything feels smooth. uh, I love to sit and talk to people, and I love to find out about people's stories. As you said, I teach storytelling, and I'm just uh, in love with other people's stories about their lives and so forth. So
Mm.
sometimes you can meet people, and you have a conversation that is like, just keeps going and going, and it never stops, and it seems not at all like hard to maintain. And I think that's a real representation of happiness to me, or a picture of happiness to me, is something where it's just moving smooth. Um, or if you even in more material terms, like thinking about as a metaphor, when you're going through the Atlanta airport, there are times when that's much smoother than other
Oh,
times. Sometimes
God,
it
yes.
is really difficult because there are so many people. It's the busiest airport in the world.
I would
And
also say it's the hottest too. I swear, I checked. They
it's,
keep it
yeah,
at 78 in there
yeah,
year round.
I'm sure they do. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard. And so similarly, like if I'm doing work and I'm writing something, or I'm working with or I'm teaching a class, or I'm working with a faculty member on some mentorship stuff, and it feels like it's just working really easily without friction, without that sort of uh scraping along. That's what I think really for me feels like happiness.
Mm. So then, I like that definition. That's amazing. The frictionless. So then I guess the goal, if one would be happier, is to try to control friction as much as possible.
Well, maybe,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
maybe,
Because I was
yeah.
like,
I
okay,
don't
that's
know.
always what I think. Okay, then how does
I
one get
think
more of
that,
that?
yeah, I think that how do you get more of that, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So that there's a couple things I think about that. One is you want to put yourself around people that you have that with. And I think most people, to the extent that's possible, they do that, right? They put themselves in environments where they can be with people that it's easy for them to be with. A second thing that I think is really crucial, or useful anyway, is to find things that will put you into, the idea of the flow state, right?
Very well. Yoga teacher lady knows it.
Exactly, right. Where and for those of the folks who haven't encountered that before, really what I'm talking about is that like there are things that we do that we kind of lose track of time. We forget the troubles of the day. We become very sort of focused on it. If you think about people playing like elite sports, for instance, like or someone who's like an excellent pianist, they can't be thinking about what they're doing while they're doing it. They just do. And that's usually a really good feeling. This year for Christmas, Santa Claus brought me a button maker
Oh, fun.
to make buttons. You probably can't see them, but this is what I'm talking about. Is like little pin-on
Mm.
buttons.
I
Um,
remember those in the day. How fun.
it is a blast, and I will come out of it after like an hour of making buttons and be like, "Oh, I'm very thirsty and I need to pee." Like it'll be like, because I have just been in it, and it's so sort of
Mhm.
amusing and fun to me. They're so worthless. They're not, it's
It doesn't even matter.
impractical.
Well, they could be. Now this is your new career launching Etsy shop
I,
forthcoming.
yeah, I don't want to monetize most of the things I do, and I also really don't want to run a business. You
Oh,
talk
me
about
neither.
like, and I know you're kind of joking, but like that is really people are like, you could sell these buttons, and I'm like, I don't want to. I don't talk about creating a world that's frictionless. I don't want to run a business. Like that
What I
seems
would
to
do is
me
be like,
like
can I give them to you to sell them for me?
perhaps yes, that's possible. Yeah. But the idea that everything has to be for a purpose or like be monetized or be a side hustle, those that's fine if you want to do that and if that works, right? But if you just want to do it because it creates the flow state for you, that isn't reason enough to do it, right?
Mm,
And so finding that is really useful
mhm,
for me. I love, like I say, I love making buttons, and there's been a few other sort of arts and craftsy type things that I've done over the years that have been like that. I also, I teach storytelling, but I also do a lot of performance, and I have a one-person show that I travel around and
mm.
to universities, and that is a great experience too. That's not for everyone. To be able, like everyone, write up a one-person show about your life and perform it. That's not for everybody.
That's
But
happiness for you,
yeah,
everyone.
but for me, I love doing it. It is so fun for me. It is that flow state experience. It is like just you just feel like you're like bam, 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 just
Mm.
hitting the moments and the feelings and the expression, all that kind of stuff. And
No,
so I
I get
feel
because that same feeling of like performance, I may not fit everybody, but say for example, just for audience member, like, well, good for him, right? Well, for me, it's creating like um these yoga music-based yoga classes. So I'm
yeah,
teaching one tonight on Alanis Morissette. So the whole concept from start to finish, and then you crafting all that, the preparation, all that brings me joy
yeah,
in doing its flow state. So it could be, it doesn't have to be solo performance. It could be something else that's your,
totally. Yeah,
jam.
absolutely. And I mean, what I was going to say about the solo performance thing is I'm so grateful when people bring me to their university to do my show. They pay me something, but like I'm mostly just grateful because I get to have access to that flow state. However, I would point out, and this is the point I want to make, is that like you can't make your flow state dependent on something that complicated. Like where you,
Mhm.
you have to get someone to pay you to travel to university
Mhm.
and like people come to a theater just so I can have the flow state. So the buttons are a good example, or like you say with your yoga classes and that kind of thing. Um, there
Another
are
one I do, which I was thinking about the buttons, there's something completely useless that I do to turn off my brain after work, which is this is ridiculous. It's a coloring app on my iPad. And
sure,
it's seriously just you touch it and the colors come. It's like paint by number, but you don't think. I
yeah,
think not at all. What do I get at the end? A pretty picture. I get nothing for this other than I'm thinking nothing right now.
it's in the state of being. So
Yeah.
my mom is a folk artist and a quilter and a quilt historian, and she always said throughout my life when she was making things, she was like, it's not in the having, it's in the doing.
Mm,
And that can mean a lot of different things, but basically I always took it to be that um she meant you need to enjoy doing it. and she would, sell some of her work and or give it away and that kind of thing. But really, she just liked doing it, and that's what made it worth it. And so
Mhm.
I could drive that home to people who are listening. I think that that's really an important thing to remember. That if you
And
like,
every single artist I've talked to, like a creator, artist, writers, um, visual artists, or musicians, have said the same thing. Like they
yeah,
come over time to the conclusion it's not the performance, it's not the piece being finished, it's not even like displaying it, it's doing
no,
it.
yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah. And most of the time, the end product is fleeting, but the
Hmm.
process is
You start again, keep
longer,
going.
right? And
Hmm.
you keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me more about this. You say for teaching storytelling, and you talk to different people. Can you tell me more about that? This idea of storytelling in your life. What's it been? How's it shaped you, your career? What does it
Yeah.
mean for you?
Yeah. So when I got out of my PhD is actually in communication, even though I work in a department of theater and performance studies. And I studied in my PhD program I studied performance studies and which is a sort of dimension of communication. And for me, that means it means a lot of different things. People utilize theories of performance in different kinds of ways in this academic discipline. But for me, I'm very like an old school kind of elocutionist type person who can teach like very good at teaching practical performance skills about getting up in front of people, which is different than acting, because there's a sort of direct address and there's character changes and that kind of thing in a way that traditional theater acting isn't like that. So anyway, when I was getting done with my PhD, I was like, oh man, I got to get a job now. And
That's
I almost
always the thing, isn't it? Oh.
so almost didn't apply for this job because I it was in a theater program or theater and performance studies, and I thought, well, they won't want me; they'll want a theatery person. But they did, and because I think that they were, I would say they made a good choice hiring me. But if for no other reason, then I think I create some points of contrast with people in our program who do what I call capital T theater, right? The traditional, fairly
Mhm.
traditional theater. So one of the things I was asked to do when I started working here was to work on creating a student group. Sort of was in place. It's a class and a student ensemble called the KSU Tellers, Kennesaw State University, KSU. And they're a storytelling troupe. And they go out and do performances in public and in the community. And then we also do performances on campus. And they have over the years done all kinds of things, international, national, regional, local conferences and festivals and that kind of thing. We just hosted the National Storytelling Conference here on our campus last summer.
There's
And
such a thing. I just learned this today. That sounds awesome.
oh yeah, it's going to be in Texas next year, in Canyon, I think. Um, yeah, there's a whole world of storytellers out there, professional storytellers, and that's their conference. Anyway, so
That's wicked cool. So is this different than like say, sort of Appalachian or Ozark, which I was more familiar with being in Arkansas for a long time,
right,
tradition of
right.
storytellers or
Well, the
Irish
modern
tradition of it?
it's like a rabbit hole, but like the modern storytelling revival that took place like in the 70s did come out of that tradition and history.
Mm,
And then people
mhm.
outside of that tradition and history were like, oh, this is amazing. And they wanted to sort of study it and they wanted to learn how to do it. And then they eventually, of course, put their own spin on it. And so there are still people like there's a guy named Donald Davis who's a storyteller who does very Southern sort of like back when I was a kid growing up. And it really feels like um, the happy parts of To Kill a Mockingbird or something where it's like
Yeah,
this.
or I'd say Meemaw stories. Meemaw,
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
kitchen telling you the
Absolutely.
long, long yarn about so and so and such and such.
Exactly. And so when I first got here, they suggested I go to the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, and in Tennessee, and I took my students there, and immediately we all kind of recognized number one, they were almost the only young people there. They were like the only college age students. They were by far the most diverse little group of people there in terms of their identities, right? And I was like, man, this isn't going to work for this group of students, right? We learned things and it was enjoyable and we had fun, but I was like, I need to create something that feels more like them and their lives and who they are and capitalizes on the diversity and that kind of thing.
I
So,
love that. That's interesting. So it's like taking a nap and saying, let's make it not just for you, but for
yeah,
lots more people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is the debate that's gone on in the storytelling world for a long time that Jonesboro is like, on one hand, wants to figure out how to, the National Storytelling Festival wants to, on one hand, maintain its body of people that come and want to come and see
Mhm.
the thing they like, but also like refresh it and hit the reset button occasionally without losing those people. And that is a very difficult
It is.
balance to create.
Yeah.
So, I this was like 15 years ago, and we started doing all kinds of different stories. As time has gone on, we've continued to do different kinds of stories, like mythology adaptations or fairy tale adaptations.
Oh,
But
fun.
our real like bread and butter now for several years has been personal storytelling and the occasional family stories. Family stories being about things that are like your family, but not necessarily about you, and personal stories are generally about you. Um,
Mhm.
and those two things have really, especially the personal storytelling, have really sort of flourished and blossomed in our program. And it becomes a place, storytelling about yourself like that is becomes a place where people who don't feel like they easily fit in can find a place that they then fit in, right?
Mhm.
Um,
How is
it,
this different than, say, like spoken word poetry, which often is served that same sort of market, right? Same market's the wrong word.
yeah,
Listen to me. I'm talking like
the
someone
same
who now
groove.
works for a global university marketing the product and the blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's the same groove, kind of.
Yeah, the same, same
It's
function,
yeah, it's the
purpose. Yeah.
same groove, and it's cool kind of in the same way. And I'm by cool, I just mean that like it's the magic trick of like both performance poetry and storytelling is like you're watching someone do something and you're like they're just saying things and standing there, but it feels like a magic trick, right? That they have conjured these images in my mind and they have kind of zigged and zagged my attention so that I feel like, whoa, whoa, as an audience member, or they took me someplace that I was totally not expecting to go, but then really loved to be there, it's a
Mhm.
magic trick in that way because you're like, how did they do that? They're just standing there talking. And
Mhm.
storytelling has that quality as well. So it becomes this thing where students get to have this great experience. They're up there talking, telling a story about themselves that they composed and that they themselves are performing in a way that is getting the audience to respond and sort of, react. Um, I sometimes talk to them about storytelling as being like we think of it as like a storyteller is like offering the audience something, the offer and the audience is like watching, right? I sometimes tell them, you're more like a conductor and the audience is like the orchestra. Like you're like, I'm going to make you laugh now and I'm going to make you cry here and we're going to slow down and we're going to speed up and we're going to, right? And if
Mm.
you get
Yeah.
everybody in the palm of your hand, then you can just take them wherever you want to take them. And that's what people come to performance for, right? They come to performance for that experience of being taken somewhere. But what the students or what the storyteller gets out of it is that they get to talk about themselves and control that story, control that narrative, and make it, become the thing they want it to be. We stay true to the story, right? But
Mm.
at the same time, you can tell a story in all kinds of different ways. And even if it's a story about some big mistake you made, this may be your opportunity to reframe that as I learned an important lesson, for instance, right? Or
Mm.
I, everyone makes mistakes and I have to forgive myself, right? And whereas in the moment of making the mistake, you're like, you want to, knock yourself over the head because you feel so bad about it.
Well, what would
So
be
yeah,
for one? I mean, I'm fascinated by this, of
yeah,
course. And I'm thinking too, like being able, one of the key things about history is about recording history is making sure that all different people's stories are told. So that, because, our history is the dominant, the people have power, what they can write down. That becomes
yeah,
a little bit different now when everybody can write something down and there's everybody's damn history and half of them are made up, right?
yeah.
But there's something beautiful, obviously, about live performance, as you were talking about, and
Mhm.
orchestrating. Now we can. Do you feel that we can do something similar with, say, a video recording of it? That could be as good because to record the stories for prosperity, do you think that's
Yeah, I
important?
mean,
Or
you can. We record the stories. that they do on our. We have a lovely system here at KSU where the university will record. They live stream the show that we do at the end of the
Mm.
semester. We do a sort of showcase at the end of the semester, and they live stream that all over the world, and then they also record the stories.
Yeah,
And
so it's like a secondhand experiencing of what would be actually the true thing, the live
right. It's as
performance.
close as you can get because you can even, we're in a black box theater and you can see the audience, you can hear the audience, and you can also see other students that are in the show that are like sitting behind the performer. Each person takes their turn performing, but everybody's the rest of the ensemble's like watching them do it.
Hmm.
So I think that it is very difficult in a recording to replicate the experience of interacting with a live audience. It feels like a kind of a different thing.
Hmm.
Um, and then
Same
writing
with
is
a yoga class. I mean,
yes,
yes, even virtually, you can have some of it, but it's never the same as being in
no,
person.
not quite the same. Not quite the same.
The energy of us existing together in the same space and having that experience just in that moment right then, you can't, there's no other way to do that.
And under the best circumstances, I sometimes describe in the show, I talk about like um our little black box theater when you close the door, I sort of imagine almost like a flying saucer that is rising up into the sky, and then we're going to go up there and have stories and learn things and have feelings, and then we're going to come back down. And I think what I like about that, I also like the idea of like being, in like movies and science fiction movies where people are in like suspended animation when they're going through long space travel.
Hmm. Hmm.
I love that idea for some reason. Like I want to go in one of those pods. But at any rate, that would make me
No,
happy.
but that
But
same thing in a theater, or if you go even to a movie theater, you're in your sort of cocoon for a while. Nothing else exists. You're going to go on your emotional journey, and then
exactly. And that's another way I think to pursue, if you can find things like that you like, that are music or films or plays or storytelling, if there's things like that you like to go see, and that you can kind of just cut yourself off from the rest of the world for a little while. I think that also is a way to carve out space for happiness. I'm sure.
100%. Rock concerts, in Boston, the best, the
Yeah,
best. And so that experience, that collective energy of being someplace where we're all doing something that's we enjoy. It's making all of us happy. There may be little irritations here and there, but the experience of immersion in something that is for your pleasure, your happiness, your emotional, roller coaster. It's
hmm.
wonderful. Yeah, 100%.
I'll be frank and say it is very difficult for me to get into that space. Like I have noticed about myself that like I'm like always ready for everything to be over. Like even things I'm enjoying, I'll be like
Same. My kids will
I'll be
tell you
like,
same.
yeah, I'm like, oh, is this okay,
Like,
we did the thing, right? Can we go? Is it done?
yeah.
Is it done? And
Yeah,
I
my
know that
son
that's
says, Mom sat for half an hour. She has to leave now.
and I know that that is interrupting my ability, I think, to access happiness.
Mhm.
But it's hard also to resist it. Um,
It's part of the journey. That's what I feel. I mean, it's part of
yeah,
my journey. You're like, yeah, you're right. Why don't I try sitting down for a second? And then I, recalibrate for a few minutes. I'm still going to leave earlier than he wants because that's what's going to happen. But,
yeah.
I'll be like, hey, self, yeah, let's chill for a minute.
And maybe
Enjoy this.
that's also about people being surrounding yourself with people who accept you and your relationships are not too don't have too much friction, so that you can just be like, I need to nope out of this one and step away. And so, but yeah, I do have struggle with happiness. There's no doubt. I think like a lot of people, well, I was going to say a lot of people who do higher education, but that's just because those are people I know. I bet it's just a lot.
No, no, it's
Um,
probably it's a lot of people in general, I think, especially a lot of academics. Yeah,
Yes, lifelong academics who are lifelong anxiety and depression people,
that's how we
and
got here.
yeah, and that certainly covers me as well. Um, uh, and no matter how many sort of recognitions I get, um, or people telling me I did a good job or whatever, uh, there is still that voice in my head, um, that is gotten clearer actually over the past couple years. The voice has gotten really clear, and it's telling me things that are not true. It's fake news, about myself and about the things that I do. And
Yeah, and you know what I recommend for that? Unfortunately, it's called menopause because after you're like, I just can't give any Fs anymore. I
I
am
don't think
like
I'm gonna
that.
get that one. I don't think
I know, exactly. Sorry,
it's
but
true
it's one
that
of the
it's
benefits.
true that as you get older, I think you care less about what other people think. Um,
Hmm.
and that has been very true for me, but that is not my problem. My problem is not what other people think. My
It's what you
problem
think.
is that voice in my head about what I don't even, it almost feels divorced from the rest of me. Like that, but there is this voice in my head that is telling me untrue things about myself and
Hmm.
speaking very unkindly about me.
I know her. Yeah, I have her too. A lot of people have her, and I think,
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of people do, especially people who have had careers where they had to push themselves to be able to even get whatever it is.
correct.
That voice was part of that process.
Hmm.
And I've been thinking about that. It's interesting you bring that up because I'm thinking about that quite a bit because that voice was useful to some extent, and then once you get to a point, it's not useful at all. And so
Yeah,
there has to become this other voice. It's like, shut up to yourself about stupid
sure.
things. I'm
Well,
cultivating
and
her.
it was probably adaptive. You're right. Like it was an adaptive thing. Um, where, like, for instance, I grew up as a kid on a farm. Now I'm a theater professor. It didn't work. Like I was very bad at it, and like probably really hard to get along with, hard to know when you're the subject, right? But uh, and my dad, rest his soul, uh, was not as patient. You know, he was of a generation like yeah, I'm like 47 years old at this was we do this recording. And my dad was of a generation where it's like you're not talking about your feelings a lot and you're not like
Your
you're not
feelings?
like
Oh,
yeah, like try to understand how your kid feels. Nobody people
no,
didn't
that
do
was
that
not
in
what
like the
happened.
80s.
The boomers didn't do that to Gen X people. They did not care how we felt. That was
No, they
not.
did not. And so you can't hardly begrudge them because they're like that's just was the world. But
Yeah.
he was very impatient with me. And so I created probably this sort of like um constant self-monitoring or
Mm,
self-surveillance to make sure I wasn't screwing up so my dad wouldn't get mad and be like, "Dag nabbit, why did you do that?" And
yeah. Or as a second, let's do it. Foucault's Panopticon.
yeah, you
Yeah,
create your
I'm
own
picking.
panopticon, right?
You
You create your
create
own
your own.
panopticon. You're like doing constant
Hmm.
self-surveillance to make sure you don't screw up so you don't get in trouble.
Yep.
And that serves you kind of for a while, right? Or like putting pressure on yourself for like you said about people that had to do something like get a PhD or go to law school or something where you're like, this is almost any of those things should be like almost as so hard you almost can't do it,
Yep.
right? Like you need to be able to do it, but it's like it's almost so hard you can't do it
Yeah,
because you
it's right on
become
the edge. You're like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And you're running. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it should be that way because
They shouldn't be
all
giving
of
them.
those yeah, all those things basically are identifying you as like an expert in a field. And so if you're going to be an expert, you better really if you're going to get recognized that way, you really ought to know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
but at the same time, that self-monitoring or that pushing yourself, um,
It's
uh,
not healthy too. You're right. How do you live? You can't live that way forever. You can't.
no, you just live that way for a few years when you're doing grad school, and then but then you can't shut it
But
off,
then you can't.
right?
Also, I mean, when you're getting tenure, then you got to use that for a while to be able to get that, and et
Yes,
cetera, et
yes,
cetera.
yes, yes. And so,
Promotions.
and then at the end, like I'm now like fully promoted and won numerous awards and so forth, and published a book and all that good stuff. A lot of those benchmarks of academia.
Yeah. Once you meet them all, then what do you do? You're just like, so
Yeah,
I just hate myself for all time, but that's not fun.
yeah. Well, that's all over. So, but the impulse to push is still there, and it
100%.
does not feel good, and it just and it is does not spark joy, and and
That's why you
so
create buttons and color. Like, I don't know what to do with this.
that's exactly right, right? That's exactly right. And so I have created essentially a part-time job trying to be a little bit happier, or at a minimum, just stave off anxiety and depression.
Hey,
Um,
that's how I ended up here in this podcast in my life. So welcome. This is what we do. We just create a whole side hustle.
you were trying to stave off anxiety and depression.
Oh yeah, no, I've had those my whole life, of course. No,
Yep.
here's what you learn, I think too, especially in academic administration. uh, Over time working with so many faculty is my dog's barking, y'all. Sorry, it is what it is.
I can't.
Dogs. But over after working with them, you realize that almost all of them, yeah, have like some type of, mental health issue that comes up. And especially those who are studying psychology or things like that. It's not because they were born the happiest, right?
Right.
Usually we're
No.
trying to solve things for ourselves. So that's why I came to this. Like, well, I need to solve that, don't I, Aaron? It's
Yeah, you mentioned that I also currently am I'm finishing out my second year of a 2-year term as the faculty fellow for faculty mentorship at KSU. And part of that is like creating workshops and things like that, book clubs and stuff for faculty. And I want to do one that's like, who did not love you enough or correctly? Because it's like, who are you still trying to impress?
yeah.
Like your dad is not going to come out of the grave and be happy you published something.
Yeah, and be like, thank goodness on that promotion, right? He doesn't care. Just let him
Yeah,
be.
and academia create has all of these little
Mm,
steps and little things to accomplish, little like pellets that they'll give you in the rat maze. And so people who are very driven often wind up there for that reason, not just because they like their discipline or they like their area of study, but because they can continue to get affirmation for like pushing themselves, which is what they want to
100%.
do anyway.
This is one of
Um,
the reasons why they also have trouble retiring sometimes when they should,
yeah,
because they haven't cultivated an identity outside of their work, right? That's like
correct.
been all of it. So then
Yeah.
what do you do? What do you do with all
Yeah.
of that? You get
Well,
the
in
little
that, yeah.
rewards.
And so I've been working a lot with new like faculty who are brand new to our university. And one of the things I told them in my first opportunity to be in touch with them was that you need to find a book club, a faith community, a bocce ball league, whatever it is that turns your crank, gets you excited, whatever, if you want to go play Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering, fine. But something that is entirely different from work, because
Hmm.
academics have a way of making everything about work, or really people who are not in academia as well. I think their work can consume them and become their whole identity. And
Hmm.
if that's not going well, they have nowhere else to go to find a source of joy, right? And
100%.
so,
Mine was roller derby, FYI. That's what I did.
yeah,
It
I
was
believe that.
wonderful. The other thing that was beautiful about that is, and I agree completely for everybody, is that you get to know people outside of your same type of career or class
Right.
or any of these things. The people you would never come in contact with necessarily to have a long discussion with them. And you get to know so much more about the world and about human beings just by doing this activity together with them.
Absolutely. You get new perspectives, new points of view. Um, Especially like in faith communities, you can often find like intergenerational friendships with people who are like
Hmm.
old enough to be your parent, and you're like, that's kind of fun, like to find out what their life is like, and also they all have a lot of wisdom and experience and stuff like that. So um, I also will say that like it took me a long time, and I'd be curious to know what you think about this. It took me a long time to not be sort of resentful of the fact that I had to do all these things to be happier. It's like I had this list of like, you should exercise, avoid alcohol, eat healthy, go on walks, and like
All of it
join a
day long.
community, like I'm saying. And I would get really resentful. I was like, I feel like I have to do all this work, and this should be something that comes much more natural to me. And did you ever have that experience that way?
Yeah, no, I still have it daily, honestly. I mean, because then the body shifts and you're like, get a routine down, you're doing your thing. You're like, yeah, I'm going okay. And then you're like, I gotta exercise every day still,
Yeah,
still,
yeah,
but I'm really tired.
yeah,
Why do I have to do this still? I can't do something that right, involves not that?
yeah.
And
You
yes,
want me
I
to
mean,
reduce my anxiety and alcohol consumption? That's
yes,
just
I
not
mean,
gonna work.
seems
And
lame.
so,
I'll just be
yeah,
anxious. Screw that.
yeah. Well, and we all know like that after one is drinking, like after they're done, like the next day, it's not better.
No.
But
Same with if you lay
with that,
around
when
in
you're
bed all
like,
day, feels
yeah.
good. Next day, you don't.
So I had to get over that resentment and just leave it behind because it was no longer serving me. And it was just
Yeah.
like this is what you have to do. It doesn't matter whether you think it's unfair or not. This is just what you have to do because I want to have a happy life. I have two little kids and I want to model some of those good
Hmm.
behaviors for my children. It's up to them whether they do it or not, but at least they can't say that I didn't model it, you know?
Well, and here's
Um,
the thing, we honestly do feel better if we do these things. We honestly do.
yeah, you do.
And there is a payoff. It's not like, oh, and it's all a myth. No, you do
Yeah.
feel better.
Yeah, I don't think
But
people ever go
yeah,
to yoga or go, do a light workout or something and then go, "Oh, I wish I hadn't done
like,
that." Like
damn it, that
nobody
was a
does
waste
that.
of my time. Yeah,
Yeah, what
exactly.
a waste of my time. Nobody feels that way. So
Mm,
I've got to get over, I had to get over that resentment. And I think I'm mostly over that resentment. I also spent a lot of time putting off, and this didn't go on for years, but I spent a lot of time putting off medication. Um,
mhm.
and then I got some medication and I wasn't taking care of it properly. I just took the prescription I had and I was like, and it wasn't really working, but I was like, well, I guess it just doesn't work very well.
Mhm.
Instead of trying to figure it out. Um,
Well,
and
and I
then,
think we can extend that even for a lot of backstabbers, a lot of people in general, their health, just all of it.
yes, yes,
Medications, exercising, going to the doctor, which is annoying, all of the things. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I have a deviated septum I'm getting repaired in February because I can't
Good
breathe out
job,
one side of
man.
my nose, right?
No,
Like
that's like pro adulting. We're like, fine, I'm gonna fix it. Fine.
yeah, that's right. But it took me a really long time to do something as simple as I have something that really needs to be fixed. We can probably fix it. It can be fixed. And I have insurance to help pay for it to be fixed and right, but I'm still not doing it for some reason. And I wonder if that is not a reflection or a playing out of that negative self-talk, right?
I
It's
think
like,
it's also, I remember in the 90s, late 90s, there some performance artists were talking especially about academia in terms of the disconnect between the mind and body, and academics pretending like they don't have bodies, right?
yeah,
They don't have to take care of them. All that matters is life of mind because you have to be able to get this work done, sit alone by yourself, writing for years, reading for years. And so it doesn't matter what happens to your body, but then that comes and bites all of us in the butt,
yeah,
and you got to take care of it eventually. And so, yeah, I don't think it's just that sort of hating yourself. It is just that you had to push, and all that mattered was your mind.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And now it's working against me.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's like, well, that we did the thing. Yay, we won it. Oh, wait, we have a body with us the whole time. It kind of hurts now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's true, as you said, that the benefit of age also gives you that like um perspective and it gives you you don't care as much about what other people think. I think things like, oh, being happy is way more important than like work politics or even
Hmm.
financial success. Just liking yourself and who you are, as long as you're maintaining a base level of like safety and you're not like constantly in a crisis because of your economic situation or something like that.
Well,
Like
think about it.
with
Isn't it
that
the
stuff covered, the most important thing is
yeah?
to be
Be
happy.
happy. Well, think about it. It's also the I don't want to say midlife crisis because that sounds like trite, like this guy buying a motorcycle. But there is something that happens in midlife where we're like, okay, I've done all the things I said, and then suddenly, is that all there is? Starts playing. You're like, and this is it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to say
Look,
it was somebody, a theologian, maybe it was Richard Rohr. I may not be right about that, but said something to the effect of like, you spend the first half of your life building the infrastructure of your life, and the second half deciding what to do with it.
oh, I
And
like that. I like that.
yeah, and I like that too. And when you hit that sort of middle age thing, you're like, well, what do I really want to do now?
Hmm.
Because I did all the things that I was supposed to do. Now I can do some more things that I want to do. One thing that I've really liked doing is this notion of mentorship in different kinds of ways.
Hmm.
I work really closely with students, like I said, with the storytelling projects they do, and that becomes a very close relationship because you're talking about their lives. Um, and talking, and also you with young people can sort of, there's definitely in a place where they need to be shown some of the things about themselves, and be like, you're not quite noticing this thing about yourself. And you can reveal that to them, show that to them, and that can be very helpful to them into understanding themselves. I now work more with faculty than I used to. I'm even working a little bit with administrators. And so, in terms of just helping them figure out how to do their work in a way that makes them happier, and I get a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction out of that. So, and I'm also trying to create opportunities for people who are earlier in their career in academia,
Hmm.
like grad students and such that I meet. I'm trying to like very consciously help create opportunities for them, to help mentor and support them, even though they're not my grad students. I just want to support them if they are interested in our discipline and so forth.
Well,
Um,
and as that same thing happened to me, similar process where it's like, okay, now I know enough that, hey, would you help this other person now and help this other person?
yeah.
And you just keep doing that, and that suddenly, you end up an administrator in Boston entering your crone error.
Yeah, and so I think that we sometimes think that all the happiness stuff you do, like eating better, getting exercise, is all very self-focused, but there certainly are healthy ways to set boundaries and also give, especially in a structured way, like in your work or something like that, to um, do for others in a way that is uh, satisfying for you and
Yeah.
fills you up, even though it's focused on
You mentioned boundaries during that, though. Um, how do you think that
that.
plays in? I know that. How do you think that plays in, especially with, work, things like that?
I think that setting boundaries is really important. We can, and that can happen in all kinds of different ways. Where you're like with other people, for instance, where you're like,
Mhm.
I need to not be around, right? You all the time, like I, because it's too stressful or something. I have a lot of sensory issues that I didn't really have an understanding of, and that have also become more acute in my old age.
Mm.
So I can't be about like a couple weeks ago, I tried to go to an Atlanta Hawks basketball game that was for some purpose, and wasn't like my own decision. It was like my daughter's choral group was singing the national anthem at the Atlanta Hawks game. She's 10 years old. That's pretty fun when you're 10 years old, right?
Yes.
And it's pretty neat to see it all. And I want to see her and everything. I'll never do that again. Like for someone with sensory issues where like loud
I
noises
was gonna say
bother
that
them,
sounds like hell.
it is like being inside of a car accident for 2 hours. It is like,
Yeah, I can't. I'd do
and
the same
it's
thing. I'd be there and I'd be like, oh my God, let it end.
yeah, absolutely. And some people love it, and that's fun for them, and they're having a great time. It was so awful for me. And so I have to set a boundary of like, I can't do stuff like that. I just cannot do stuff like that. And I've talked to my kids about it, and my spouse, and like, um I just can't. And the ability to do that was really groundbreaking. For instance, for years, like when we had kids, I felt really like I needed to like make dinner in the formal way every night. And like there needed to be a meatloaf and green beans and,
Hmm.
mashed potatoes and all that.
Aprons, more aprons.
Yeah, I have an apron, and
Mhm.
I do enjoy cooking sometimes, but there are certainly times when I was like, it felt like I was doing it like with the sword of Damocles hanging over my head. Like I was about to be like I was about to be eliminated at any moment. Like it felt awful, right? And but I feel compelled to do it. And then over time I was able to set boundaries with myself and say, you don't have to do that. It's fine to make those kids a box of mac and cheese. That's probably what they want anyway.
Yeah, that's what they want. And you know what? It's fine.
Yeah. And sometimes you can have scrambled eggs and toast, and it's fine.
You know
And
what people love? Breakfast for dinner. Everybody
I do that all the time. But it,
love
it
it.
took time for me to accept doing the simpler thing, um, because I just felt as if I was like programmed somehow. I think that like I felt as if that's the way it was supposed to be, and that's how you do it correctly. And so I didn't feel like there was another choice. And so sometimes setting boundaries is about identifying other choices, um, that aren't the thing that you always do.
Yeah, and I think that's
Sets
really
you
the
free.
key thing that I've been focusing on myself is setting boundaries with myself because I'm the biggest troublemaker in my life.
Yeah.
It's me. And so I will push myself and just be, I have a lot of like, hey girl, you're not going to do that. What you're actually going to do is sit your butt down and read some of the book you want to read and stop. Just stop it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's hard. And I hope that your listeners can sort of take that away from this too, that like that just identifying that, setting those boundaries, and um making them clear to yourself. And it's also like not a one-time thing. Like you're talking about that self-talk you're doing to yourself. You do that all the time. um I sometimes think, we think about a lot of things in our lives as being sort of like high school graduation, where it's like, I did it and it's over
Yay!
now.
Yeah.
Very few things in life are like that.
The kiss
I
at the
think,
end of the movie syndrome too, I call it. And then what
yeah,
happens
the
after
music
that?
comes up, they kiss, and like, but what happens next, right?
Yeah.
Most
Who's
things
gonna do the
are like
dishes? That's what
most
happens
things are more
next.
like being in recovery or being an alcoholic, right? Where it's like you have to get up every day and try again. And
Every day.
just because it worked yesterday does not mean it's going to work today, right? And
Mhm.
you have to just grind it out. And that's what most things are like. That's what most jobs are like, where you're like, I did good yesterday, but I could screw it up today.
And
And
they want me to do it again today? Damn it.
yeah,
I'm
so and
tired.
boundaries, setting boundaries like that, and positive self-talk is like that too, where you're like, and this is what I think I was resentful about. I was like, why do I have to keep doing this? Why do I have to do all these things and have like a permanent part-time job to be happy? And I was resentful of that. And one way to accept that was to accept that like this is an ongoing thing. It is not over. Um, when it isn't just done one day. You continue to do it all the time.
Well, and you bring up a great point. That idea of the happily ever after is so harmful to us in the long term. It feels really good. We can get a good dopamine rush when we watch that movie, but that kiss, the sort of graduation moment, achieve your goal moment, that's not how life feels at all. It's like you have that, and then the next day, and the next day, and it becomes once we start to see it far more like, oh, I'm taking this long path,
Yeah.
and here
And in
now I'm in this
truth,
part.
those big
Part.
moments in our lives when they like when they occur, like the graduation moments or the wedding moments, they almost can't live up to the hype. Like like the next day there's a sort of deflating anyway.
Yeah,
You're
and
like,
you're like,
that's
ah, what
it?
do I
That's it? Yeah.
gotta clean up
Um
after graduation? Here I go, right? Yeah,
yeah,
and
I
it
had
can be
a good friend of
depressing.
mine. What's that?
It can be depressing. You're right.
Yeah, I had a good friend of mine years ago when I was in grad school. He did this whole story about graduating from undergrad, and he performed it for an audience, but it was all about graduating and then his parents taking him to Red Lobster after the ceremony. And it's like you go through all this trouble to go to college and all this work and all these late nights, and in the end, your prizes is just
Just
cheddar
Red Lobster.
biscuits at Red Lobster, which are great, but like that's
But
it,
that's a lot of work for some cheddar biscuits.
yeah, and that also I think brings us back to that, it's not in the having, it's in the doing kind of feeling, right? Which is that like you better like what you're doing, um, because otherwise, uh, because no future is promised, right? And so you might as well do what you like doing. This
Mhm.
is another thing I come into contact a lot with students teaching in a department of theater and performance studies is students whose parents are like really anxious about them being theater majors because they think, well, you're not going to be a movie star or whatever, so how are you going to make a living? And there are lots of different kinds of ways to make a living in theater, but it's really just a great Bachelor of Arts degree that we have. It's
Mhm.
not a BFA,
Mhm.
it's a BA. And it's a liberal arts degree. And you learn a lot about writing and working in teams and telling
Management,
stories.
project management,
Correct.
uh, marketing, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
PR.
I have a former student who I love to tell the story that she went to law school after graduation and she went to intern at a law firm and they're like, you have a theater degree. Why does that apply here? And she's like, well, I do all this project management. I have excellent public speaking skills and excellent writing skills. I'm a good researcher. She's like, but
Yeah.
the most important thing is I know how to tell a story. And every single
Mhm.
immigration case, that's what she was applying to do. It's about telling a story. And they were like, oh,
Snap.
dang, right?
Well
And
done.
yeah, and she's doing great. And so um she liked doing theater and liked being in that environment. I don't think she thought she was going to do it professionally. I think she just liked it. And then she went off to law school and now she's a lawyer and does immigration law. And
I think
so
about that with one of my dear friends, Cora Wilson, who was a theater major, and now with her husband runs one of the most successful martial arts academies in the state. And to her, it makes sense, right? Theater, it's performance, it's creating structures, doing all that. She teaches day in and day out. She's doing the same type of skills, right?
yeah,
Makes sense
movement,
in her mind.
there's costumes, there's
Yeah,
all these kinds of things, right? So yeah, so it is a constant day to day, but effort to stay happy, I think, or to get happy. I'm on a good big streak now. Um,
good.
I know because I keep a mood journal now. And
You do. You are making this a side hustle.
no, it's not. I'm not monetizing it. It's just on my phone. I have an
Mhm.
Apple iPhone, and I don't know about Androids, but the iPhone comes like with a journal app, and I just have one note that is kind of open, and I put down the day, and I put down how I was doing, just like okay, you know, that's all I have to do. Because the idea of journaling, like telling my feelings to myself, I
Oh,
couldn't.
I
It
can't.
would
Some
have
people
never
love
worked.
that, and I'm like, oh, I would rather just I'll just take my kidney. No, I'm not doing
Yeah.
that.
It
No,
was I was like, I'm just not realistic. That was not realistically gonna happen. And
no.
so I started just putting down like here's what I did today to stay less anxious. Here's how it worked
Mm,
out. And then you can kind of track like how long you've been going. Um and before you have a real flare up of depression or anxiety.
mm,
Also, if you do it, it could still be very simple, but if you can mark like triggers, right, and say, I got
mm,
freaked out because of this, and it sent me in an anxiety spiral, then you can like look at back at that and prepare for that the next time that you have to do it, or find
mm.
a way around it, right? Or look at that situation differently. Because people who have anxiety and depression, like us, um, your brain is lying to you sometimes. It is not
100%.
its actual
Yeah,
friend
and that's
sometimes.
really I like that method too because it can help track other health things that are happening, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I also did get sick around that time. You're looking at the dates and all that stuff. And you can begin to just understand better. I mean, if you think the concept of like mindfulness, which is the same thing where you're learning about yourself by watching yourself. This
Mhm.
is just another form of that that's takes less
Yes.
time.
Yes. And I don't know, like I say about different programs and stuff, but like my after doing it for a few days, my app comes up and notifies me every evening and says, "Hey, it's time to write in your journal." And like and so I go
Oh,
on there
thank you,
and put the
phone.
date and I say I was okay or pretty hard got through it. But it just gives me a little bit of data, a little bit of information about my progress that isn't dependent on my memory and isn't
Hmm.
dependent on my perception.
Yeah,
Um,
and the feelings, the emotions, the thoughts, because you spend down far enough, those are not the least bit reliable. They're complete liars.
No way. Not at all.
Yeah,
Uh,
I like
and
that
that,
tip. Thank you for that one. That's a very
yeah,
useful one.
that's a good one, I think. That's been helpful to me.
And you know
Absolutely.
what, Charles? Well, you know what's insane is we've talked the entire time, and I'm only on question one. What is your definite? But
You didn't ask
so
any more questions. I mean, lay a
no, no.
couple more on me.
And
Can you
I
lay a
have to
couple
end.
more
I
on me?
have a coffee date. I got
Oh
to do it.
yeah, that's
But
right.
there's always the two final. This is how it goes. I actually love the episodes where this happens the most. So I'm like,
Okay,
yeah, it was just a good chat because we talked about happiness the whole time. So, and it means I have to have you back on because we have more that we can talk about.
totally.
Yeah. So, first of all, number one, any final thoughts on happiness you want to give people?
Um,
The pressure of that one too, right? Like this is
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's
Um,
not. We'll have you back on, and
I
then it won't
think
be it.
that the one thing I will say, I want to, I guess if I can highlight what I was talking about with boundaries and the idea of like things can be different than you think they are, or that you
Mhm.
think they must be. Accepting that
Mhm.
things can be different, I think, is the first step towards happiness. Because
Mhm.
you're like, it's this way, it's this way, it's this way. And you're like, well, there are other possibilities. You could sell all your stuff and move to a different place. You
I like
could
that.
start a new
Yeah.
career. You
The
could,
way
or you could
the
just
way
go to
I
bed
say it,
earlier. Like you could just
the way I say it is, you're not trapped. I'm not trapped.
that's
You're
right.
never
That's right.
trapped.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's the first step towards happiness. Otherwise, you can't get out of the rut.
Hmm. Or as they say, hope. That's hope, right? And hope is the most important thing to overcoming like fear, anger, anxiety, all those things. Hope is the biggest antidote to love. Though it's nice, love's nice. It's hope. Because if
Yeah.
we're hopeless and we're like nothing's gonna get better, it's way this way forever. Why bother?
Right.
Hope says we're not stuck. We can change.
Well, I think you're doing great work here, and I appreciate you letting me be on your show. I appreciate it.
Well, I think you're doing great work, and thank you for coming on it. Now, here's one final question. Everybody hates it. What is one song you would like to add to the Happy You Asked playlist?
The Happy You Ass playlist, and that
A
could be a
music
song.
song? It could be anything. I leave it wide open, this definition. You get to add one song to this playlist. It could be whatever you want.
Oh, I want it to be Leader of the Pack by the
Perfect.
Shangri-Las.
Got
Yeah.
it. That's your song. Well, Charles Parrott, I can't thank you enough. This was such a wonderful conversation. I feel happier now.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Yay. All right, everyone. Thanks, listeners, and thank you especially to Charles. Bye.
Bye.